Hi everyone, and welcome to Cover 2017. We are in Madrid, and I am here with the president of Cover, Jay Alberg. Hi Jay.
Hello Adam.
How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for all of your work with Cover and your presidency. How's it going?
It's going well, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, this is really, for me too, very exciting.
Yeah.
To come to a new place. I've never been to Spain before. Cover has never been to Spain before. Yeah. And to have a group of people here who, although only a couple were active in Cover, there's a whole team of people that have worked very hard to get this all ready.
We've had quite a few new people here, and everybody just talks about how congenial it is here, and just the spirit of kind of friendship and hospitality, and that's pretty awesome.
It's due mainly to you. No,
I was going to ask, how did you foster this congeniality?
No, I mean, it certainly is part of what attracted me to, once I attended one, to think I want to keep going to these because the people were so welcoming. And I do, one of my own responsibilities, it's not something that comes natural to me, is to go up to new faces and to introduce myself and say, I'm Jeremiah Alberg, and most of them have at least heard the name, which is an unusual feeling for me too. But to just try to be friendly and to say, you know, you're welcome here, and we're happy to have you.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's always a good feeling to come back to Cover.
It is.
So
yeah.
that's good. You have a book that was recently published called Apocalypse Deferred.
Deferred. Yes.
Let's keep deferring that apocalypse.
Yes.
Can we do that?
A couple more weeks.
So tell us a little bit about your book.
I edited it, so it's mainly other people's writings. Some names people will know, like Jean-Pierre Dupuis, and Eric Gans would be some of the big names. But it comes out of a Cover conference that was held in Tokyo in 2010. So those papers. And the main papers are, a number of them deal with sort of the aftermath of World War II and Japan. And then another group deal with Japanese culture, so something like anime and things like that. And Japan, and then finally there's a theological section that is not so strictly having to do with Japan.
Wow.
So it's 3 parts. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about those 3 parts?
Sure, yeah. No, the opening, Eric Gans, if I remember correctly, was born as the war ended, so he kind of lived his life in the shadow of the war, as he put it. And of course, for many Americans, I think because of our own, at least many European heritage Americans, the war often means the European war, Nazism. But there is this whole other dimension to it, the Pacific War and the ending with the atomic bomb, and what that meant and what it means even to today. René Girard has a number of comments. He never did a systematic writing on nuclear weapons, but a number of scattered comments, and a number of the papers draw out some of those comments and try to develop them a little bit in terms of seeing, again, a mimetic conflict, you know, of first the United States having this weapon that they somehow think is going to end war, and then, of course, it's immediately copied by, and then you have to develop a bigger, better, faster, stronger, and it just keeps going through the whole Cold War period that really was sort of formed, you could say, the intellectual milieu for René Girard. So even though René would have written after the fall of the Berlin Wall, you'd still see most of his intellectual development as having happened within the context of this sort of post-war world. So that was a very important part of the book, and a very important part of people's considerations about what mimetic theory, and also Eric Gans, as I said, was one of the writers, the people from the generative anthropology group, which is sort of a sister group to Cover, were there, and were part of it. So both the first 2 essays, which are by Jean-Pierre Dupuis and Eric Gans, deal with that from their respective positions. Jean-Pierre Dupuy, very much his late writings in the past few years, talking about catastrophe that we keep putting off, and the way we use mutually assured destruction, MAD, and things like these as sort of ersatz sacred. You know, that these strategies become something no one can touch. Everyone has, just like the old sacred was something no one can touch. Then there's a beautiful paper on one of the survivors of the Nagasaki bomb. So just a bit of background for the people who are listening to this. The second bomb that was dropped on Nagasaki didn't fall quite on its intended target. It was exploded right over the cathedral, the Catholic Cathedral of Nagasaki, which was the neighborhood in which most of the Catholics lived. And Nagasaki was really the only Catholic city in the country. So it killed an enormous number of Catholics. And for a lot of Japanese, that was sort of like they got what was coming to them.
Because they were Christian.
They were Christian, they were of a foreign religion, they were impure, and they were killed. And one of the survivors is a man named Dr. Nagai, who was working as a doctor there, and then his wife was killed in the blast. He and his 2 children survived. And about 6 months after, they had a memorial mass, and he was asked to preach at it. And I don't think he's been canonized or anything, but he certainly is one of the people who's considered sort of a saint in Japan. And he gave a very powerful homily where he rehabilitated the victims, basically. Wow. And that's what this paper is about, his rehabilitation of the victims, and how understanding some background helps one to see that he wasn't apologizing for the United States violence or something like that. But what he was trying to do really was rehabilitate the victim. Wow. Yeah, it's a very powerful. Yeah. And then there are a couple of other articles, I think, if you're interested in Japanese manga or movies, anime, that deal with those, and they're very interesting, very nicely done. And then Sandra Goodhart and Tom Ryba and Richard Schenck have the last 3 essays on theological themes. And just, again, a development of things like near and far, and what are how can we understand those as a way of drawing close that still keeps the proper distance, so that we're not just colonizing the other, which is, I'm referring to a talk we had this morning here. In this setting, Spain, it's much more awareness of colonization and things like that. But it's the same type of thought about how do we let the other be other without turning them into somebody alien or just incorporating them into ourselves.
Yeah. Wow. So, sounds like a fascinating book, Jay.
Well, I hope you like it.
Yes, thank you. Awesome. Well, thanks for talking with us about it. And thanks, everybody, for watching. Yeah. If you want to find out more about Cover, the web address is religionandviolence.org. Is that right?
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah. So please join us.
Yes. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.